If your dynasty team is stuck in the middle, you're losing twice. Let's fix that today. My name is Caleb, and this is the Dynasty Edge, where I want you to begin to think like a GM to build your dynasty team so you can win championships for years to come. And the first step in the rebuild process is understanding the truth about rebuilding. Rebuilding is not punishment. I think a lot of people look at rebuilding as a way of it takes a lot of work to get it done. And, if you're active and working constantly, you can get it done really fast, but it is something that takes intentionality. You really got to take an honest review of your roster so that you can get the roster where you want it to go and have the team that you've always wanted to have. The goal is to consolidate your talent, get rid of aging assets, and have your team in the best position to win in the long term. Don't just kind of rebuild. It never works to just kind of go half in. You really want to go all in on the rebuild so that your team can be built from the ground up. I see a lot of teams that kind of go half in and they end up just being halfway through their league. They're in the middle constantly. And what I want to do is help you prepare to get to the next level so that you can rebuild. And so the first overall step before you get started doing anything else, before you really start rebuilding, the number one thing you need to do is try to get your first back. A lot of teams have traded away their firsts for the current year or for the future years. And what I want you to do is see if you can get this year's first and next year's first round picks back for your team. Go out there, go to the owner that you traded it to. If you didn't trade it, hold on to that thing. Make sure you secure it. But if you don't have it, go to that team that has it and see if you can get a deal done. It's okay to overpay a little bit before you rebuild, because if you show your cards that you're rebuilding, it's going to be really hard to get that pick. So number one step before you do anything else is secure that first round pick. Now, once you've secured the first round pick that you have for this year and for next year in the most ideal situations, you got to really start to identify your core players who will be elite both now or in the next 2 to 3 years. Who are those players? You're going to want to look at quarterbacks, you're going to want to look at tight ends, and you're going to want to look at wide receivers. Those are the main positions that you want to secure elite assets in on your team. Running backs are the last piece, but I'll talk about running backs a little bit later, and there might be some exclusions to that rule as we get into this, but you don't want to go in just trying to find those elite running backs right away. That's later in the process. You also want to identify, after you find your core, what players you need to just keep no matter what. They're just like, foundational pieces, whether that's a young quarterback like Drake May, or maybe it's Caleb Williams or Bo Nix or somebody like that, that is a quarterback you can have for years to come. Or it could be a wide receiver. Maybe that's Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. Maybe you have one of those elite pieces that you can build your team around for future years to come. You don't want to trade away those pieces. Those are pieces to build around. Now, you want to identify your decaying assets. Maybe those are running backs that are approaching that age cliff of 27, 28 years old. If they're getting close to 30, those are definitely players that are decaying on your roster, and you're going to want to find ways to move on from those players. You're going to also want to find your replaceable producers, guys putting up points, but holding a zero in future value. Those are players like Derrick Henry, scoring you tons of points, but he's not really worth anything outside of the season. You're going to want to find players like that, and you're going to want to start moving those players right now. And then I think that it's a really good time to audit your team and really figure out, what direction you want to go and what you're going to start to do moving forward. But once you identify those core pieces that you're going to keep no matter what, then you can start making the moves to move off of those pieces that are, roster cloggers, that are going to be really hard to move in the offseason, and you just want to start moving them. We're at the tail end of the year. The playoffs have just ended, and we want to move into making moves that'll set us up for years to come. And so the first step is, do you have running backs that are old and expiring? They might be producers now, like a Derrick Henry, like a Christian McCaffrey, players like that, maybe a James Conner who's injured and also producing. You're going to want to move those players. Now, what do you move them for? McCaffrey, you could probably get a late first in season. If there's a team in your dynasty league that needs a running back, trade them away now. Go to that contender and see if you can get that late first from them. Maybe you could package together 2 aging running backs and get a first. It's a really good time to consolidate take two pieces and get a better piece with those two pieces, that'll help your roster long term. It gets points off your team, and it also sets you up so you don't have decaying players that eventually hit that value drop where they're not worth anything anymore. So you want to figure that out. You're also going to want to figure out how to get rid of these aging wide receivers as well. Guys like Keenan Allen, guys like maybe DK Metcalf that are getting a little bit older that are really great for contending pieces, but for a rebuilding team, you're going to want to have really young assets that are just going to accrue in value and go up in value over years to come. And so anybody who's an aging veteran that could not be worth something in the future, you're going to want to get rid of those players, don't just drop them, but trade them away. You might want to take back seconds. Maybe you package together 3 of those players and get a first. It really depends. You can use resources like Dynasty Daddy, Keep Trade Cut to figure out trade packages to make in your league so that you can get those players and consolidate assets. You're going to want to get points off your team so that next year, if you are going towards, going after the 101, you can start to move in that direction and not have people scoring a bunch of points. The best time to move those types of players are in season when they're scoring points, but it's not impossible to move off those players during the offseason if you're strategic about it and willing to take a little less value in return, which is better for you in the long run. So you've secured your pieces, you've secured your first round pick, you've traded away some of those aging pieces, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what pieces do I go after if I'm going to trade for other players? Because a lot of the time on a rebuild, you're going to want to trade for picks. You're going to want to take in as many picks as you possibly can on your team so that you can have flexibility. Picks only go up in value. Players typically go down in value unless it's a cornerstone asset. Those go up in value as well. But if you can't get a hold of those cornerstone assets, you grab picks, and picks will go up in value, and they hit their peak time in the offseason, which is basically right now. January to May, those picks are just going to keep going up and up and up and up. And that is a great time to grab picks during the season, right after the season ends, so that your team is in a great position. And so I think those are great positions to have. You can also go after some tight ends. If you want to find a cornerstone tight end, depending on if your league is a tight end premium league, meaning that if a tight end gets a catch, it gets more than a point per catch. If you play in a full PPR league, a tight end would just get a normal, 1 point per catch. But let's say you play in a 2.0 tight end premium, every catch a tight end gets is going to get an extra point. So finding a tight end that's getting a lot of volume that can get you extra points on your team isn't a bad idea. And what I would look for if you're looking for a tight end, or if you already have one, look for a guy that's less than 28 years old, that is still on the rise and still contributing for their team. That is a great person to have. If you have a Brock Bowers, if you have a Tyler Warren, if you have a Harold Fannin or something like that, that is great. Hold on to those players. But you can look to move off of players like George Kittle, Travis Kelce, if you have them. Move off of those players. You don't want them for your rebuild. You're going to want to look towards younger players, but you can find tight ends in the draft, and I'll explain how to draft in a future video. So what to acquire on your team. If you're just at a baseline, you don't have anything else going on your team, these are the positions in order that you're going to want to try to find. Number one, you're going to want to find a just tried and true quarterback for your team. Somebody that's not going to go down in value. You're going to want to go after like the Jaden Daniels. You're going to want to go after like a Drake May. You're going to want to, secure a Lamar Jackson, one of those players, Josh Allen, that can be a cornerstone piece to your team. A set it and forget it kind of a guy that's going to score your points every single week. Those are great quarterbacks to have. If you can draft them in the draft, that is a great place to get a quarterback at a lower value, for a first round pick. But if you can go out and trade maybe 2 older quarterbacks for a younger quarterback to a contender, that's a great place to secure a cornerstone asset for your team. So that would be the first thing that I would say. If you're like, hey, Caleb, if I'm trying to find or make my team better, where do I start? Start at quarterback. Go out there and find a quarterback. Get a good deal. Right now, in this current season, Patrick Mahomes is a great person to go after right now because he's injured. He's an elite quarterback. He's still relatively young, and he'd be a great cornerstone asset for your team. He's going to be cheap. You can go get him. On other seasons, you can find other players. So find a player who's lower in value, but still a big asset, and go attack and get that type of a player. Don't feel like you have to overpay, but finding a good quarterback is going to set you up to win. Number two, second, contract wide receivers. So wide receivers that are rookies but are just starting to explode are great players to go and get. Players that are injured, a Drake London who suffered an injury towards the end of this past season is a great cornerstone asset to go get on your team because he's a starting wide receiver for a team. He's a wide receiver one. He's going to be getting a new contract very soon, and he's a guy that just has an upward trajectory. And he's not going to be as expensive as he normally is because last season he was injured. And so finding injured players that are cornerstone is going to be one of the easiest ways to grab value for your team. And then also securing any players like that. You can go get a Garrett Wilson, who's also a wide receiver one for his team. Getting players like that are going to not only just continue to rise in their value, but they're also going to be just assets for your team in the future that you can build around and build a great roster around. And then if you're looking to score some points in this current season, finding, backup running backs that you can get, a Tyler Algier, somebody like that for a team so that you can, if the starter goes down, you can trade away that piece. If Bijan Robinson, God forbid, ever goes down with an injury, Tyler Algier's value will skyrocket. And you could probably get, a second round, a couple second rounds, or maybe even a first for him in the season. So securing a bunch of backups in your league will be more than valuable for you to have. So what I typically do on a rebuild is I just gobble up all the backup quarterbacks and a bunch of backup running backs on the teams so that I have an opportunity to trade to other teams when they need a running back. And so you're going to want to find these players. They're really cheap. Oftentimes they have a ton of upside, and I think it's a great way to get value on your team so that you have every opportunity to, benefit it long term, but you got to stay active. I'm always active in the waiver wire. I'm always active with other people to see what kind of trades, see if you can get a backup thrown in on a deal. A lot of the times you can make deals and just ask for a backup running back and they'll throw it in on top of a trade that you already made so that you can just continue to get more value. I got so many injured running backs this past season that were backups that have made my team better because I just asked for them and to throw in on a deal. They didn't care. It got somebody off their roster. I didn't mind taking a backup running back because I didn't need points. And so I think it benefits both teams if you can make those deals. And obviously the best thing you can do when trading players away or trading for players is trading your players for future picks. Picks always go up in value. Picks are always going to be worth something. And it's a great way to build that up on your team. It takes scoring players off your team and it gives non-scoring assets that grow in value on your team. I think one of the best things that you can do is accumulate over time. The next step, once you've kind of figured out your team, you're got rid of players that are not scoring. You've got players that aren't scoring and are going to be growing in value. And you kind of got your cornerstone assets involved. One thing you're going to be looking to do throughout the season and in the offseason is taking in as many first round picks as you can possibly get. If you can get deals where you can tier down on a wide receiver, so you have a player like Jamar Chase and somebody will give you a Drake London and a first round pick, or Drake London and a first and a second round pick. On a rebuilder, that insulated asset of a Drake London is a great player to tier down to because he's still a wide receiver one, and you're going to get picks on top of that. And so you can go out there and get so many more picks if you do that. And it's a great way to build value. So in any way that you can to get more first round picks while holding yours, making sure that is like the most important thing to do is hold on to your first round picks, but accumulating as many other first round picks that you can in your league so that you can be best set up for the future, because those first round picks are worth a lot. Now, you don't always want to use all those first round picks to pick players because picking players can be risky. I'll have a draft strategy video in the future for you to help you just nail your drafts, but picking players are risky. And so you can use those when you're ready to start going towards contending. You could start to trade those players for assets because once the draft comes around, everybody's excited. Everybody wants to draft their players, and you can get insane values for player. Even on a low draft year, you can get insane values for players in your leagues if you just know where to look for those deals. And so I think it's really good to be picking up those picks as much as you can. I don't have any problem on a rebuild getting draft picks 2 years in advance. Now, I know in paid leagues, a lot of the time you have to pay your dues for the next 2 years if you're going to use those picks, but grabbing those picks from other people is a great way to accumulate value if you're not in a rush to compete. If you're not in a rush to compete and you want to build this out long term, grabbing future picks is a great way to build your team, to not worry about the right now and build towards the future. And I think that you can use those picks to go get players because everybody wants firsts. So it doesn't matter how many years they're out, everybody wants firsts, and they're always going to be worth something in a trade. And you can get great players at a great value. Now, this isn't a player value video, but in the future, we'll talk more about what you can get for 2 firsts, what you can get for a first. And I think that'll help you in rebuilding your team and setting it up for the future. I think that one of the things that I focus on when having a rebuild is building a young team that's going to grow to being a massive contender. I have several teams now that I took. They were the bottom team in the league. We secured the 101, and now they're just championship, like running the table because I was strategic. I got the picks. I made great deals when they presented themselves. I don't ever turn away a deal. Even if I'm a contender and somebody's coming in and they're going to offer me a great deal for one of my players, I'm most likely going to accept it because the value for your team matters at every phase of this. So when you're a rebuilder and somebody comes in with a massive offer, even if it's for your favorite player, it's okay to assess it, see if it's a great pick or a great trade for your rebuild, and then move on and move forward with it. I don't think it's a bad idea to get those trades to accumulate value on your team so that in the future you don't have to worry about making those. You can make even better deals. I remember selling Justin Herbert at the time for Kyler Murray and 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. Crazy deal, but that set me up for the future, and I was able to build a juggernaut of a team because I took advantage of great deals and building a strong young core that I can compete with in the future. And I think that's great. And so your first year in your rebuild, just not having any expectations, but building a strong team and just staying active, always be offering deals. You can get so many good deals if you just go out there and offer a player. You see somebody's tight end got hurt, go offer them a tight end. Their quarterback gets hurt, go offer them a quarterback. Somebody's getting traded. There's so many ups and downs in the offseason and during the season. If you can just hit when players are in the news, you can get so much value for your team if you just stay active and on top of those things. Now, you don't need to live and breathe Dynasty every second of the day, but you can make these values if you just kind of keep track of what's going on in the league, what's happening in your league, and what players people want, and maybe what, other teams in your league, who their favorite team is. And you can offer those players to those teams, and it really helps you build out a strong team. I think the best way to build out your rebuild is to trade during the season. There's always going to be injuries. There's always going to be players that are gaining value, losing value. And so staying active during the season, you can set up your team so much for the future. And having a no trade deadline in your league, if your league doesn't have a trade deadline, that's perfect because you can make trades all the way up until the championship. If your team does have a trade deadline, making sure you're active as much as possible until that trade deadline so that you can secure as much value as you possibly can. And then fight for no trade deadline in the future. I always try to fight for no trade deadline on all of my teams so that I can make those deals because there's injuries in the playoffs and teams need something. And so trading with those teams, if there's no trade deadline and everybody knows it, it's a great way to improve your team and help a team that needs something. How long should a rebuild actually take? Some people say 2 to 3 years if it's a really big rebuild. I think any team can be rebuilt in one season or one off season, just how active you want to be. If you want to be making 4 trades a month, you can rebuild a team pretty fast. If you want to just do 1 trade a month, you just got to be willing to trade. You got to be willing to stay active, take advantage of different things that are happening in season and in the off season, and you'll find yourself in great position. So how long does it take? It takes as long as you want to be active. And if you're going to be really active in your league, you can find yourself going from a 0 to contender in one off season and having a powerhouse of a team if you stay active and if you stay on top of it. So, Some of the big takeaways, don't just go in halfway. If you're going to rebuild your team, go all in. You're going to want to go for the one-on-one. How do you assess if your team is going to be ready for a rebuild? Are you the top 1, 2, or third best team in your league? If you're one of the top 3, it's not time for a rebuild. But if you're anywhere below that, you need to be going down to the one-on-one as fast as possible and in the quickest way you possibly can in your league so you secure the highest draft pick and build your team out for the future. And so, don't rebuild halfway, go all in, because who cares if you're 6th place every year? You're going to want to get 1st place. And the best way to do that is to rebuild, go all in, and get that championship and win the championship again and again and again. Make it the league that everybody hates because you keep winning it every single time. Make sure you sell your running backs first. Build that position last. Remember, your quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, you're going to want to build that out first, get the running backs later, and you can do running backs super cheap. You don't have to worry about building elite. Now, if you have an elite running back, if you have Bijan Robinson on your team, that's a cornerstone asset. You're going to want to keep that asset. But if you don't feel like you have to build out your running backs first, build out the other positions, build it from the ground up. Somebody gave me great advice a while back. You don't want to build straight up on your team. You want to build out, build a great, good foundation to stand on, and then build up. Okay, so build more positions to be better before you just go elite in every position. Just go out, then up as far as what you do in your rebuild. Elite quarterbacks, young wide receivers, stack your picks, get as many picks as you can. You don't have to use them to pick players. Use them as value to get things that are the best for your team. I promise you, the more picks you have, the more flexibility you'll have to build the team you want in the future. And then again, value. When you want to get value for your team, it's going to help you the best. Do that over the vibes. You can have the coolest players, but the worst team. Value. That's all you want. Even if you're contending, you're in the championship and you get a deal you just cannot refuse. My advice usually is take the deal because you want value for your team. You want to be competing the most for the long-term best for your team. So if this video was helpful for you, if you found this as a way to help you rebuild your team, I want to know. Let me know if you have any trade questions, anything that you're looking for advice on rebuilding your team, directions you should go. Drop it in the comments below. I will answer all of your comments in the fastest way I can, but I hope this was helpful for you, and I can't wait to drop the next video very soon. This is going to be a fun experience, and let's think like a GM, and let's get these championships.